Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, and welcome back to this next video. And this is another video in the series of videos on the isotypes of the antibodies. In my last videos, I've told you about the immunoglobulin G, and then I talked about the first subtype of the immunoglobulin G, that was immunoglobulin G1. So, if you have any problem in understanding the immunoglobulin G or the immunoglobulin G1, you can see those particular videos. In this particular video, I want to focus on another subtype of the immunoglobulin G, that is known as the immunoglobulin G2. Now, this immunoglobulin G2, if you compare that with the immunoglobulin G1, so this is actually occupying about 20 to 30% of the immunoglobulin G population. So this is less common as compared to the immunoglobulin G1. If we talk about the glycosylation pattern in the immunoglobulin G2, so they have got this biantennary complex glycan structure. So you need to understand this biantennary. I've told you that in the last video as well, but just to recap that particular thing, you can see this antenna-like structure. This is one antenna-like structure. This is another antenna-like structure. So as they are two, so we are using the term bi, and antennary is actually referring to these antenna-like structure. And this particular biantennary complex is attached at the asparagine 297 position of the immunoglobulin G2. If you look at the composition of this biantennary complex glycan, as you can see over here, you can see the N-acetyl neuraminic acid. And this is the color that is representing this Neo5EC. So you can see these two over here. Then you have got the galactose attached to them. So the galactose that has been represented by these yellow balls over here, and the attachment of the galactose to any particular molecule, that is known as the galactosylation. And this galactosylation, or the attachment of the galactose, that is almost same in all of the subclasses of the immunoglobulin G. Then you have got a very high manostructure in the immunoglobulin G2. If you compare this with the other subclasses of the immunoglobulin G, so in immunoglobulin G2, you are going to see a high manostructure, and the manos that has been represented by these green balls over here. Then you have got the N-acetyl glucose amine, and if you see over here, this N-acetyl glucose amine that has been represented by these blue circles over here. Then you have got the fucose that has been attached over here at this particular position, and the attachment of the fucose to a molecule that is known as the fucosylation. Now, this fucosylation that is typically lower in the immunoglobulin G2 when you compare that with the immunoglobulin G1. If you talk about the hinge region in the immunoglobulin G2, it have got a very short hinge region, which is actually about 12 amino acids long when you talk about the human immunoglobulin G2. And the immunoglobulin G2, that is a very weak activator of the classical complement pathway. In my last video, I've told you that the immunoglobulin G1 is a very good activator of the classical complement pathway, but the immunoglobulin G2 is a weak activator of the classical complement pathway. And one of the reasons is that it is a weak activator of the classical complement pathway, that its short hinge region is not actually providing an optimal binding site for the C1q, which was actually a component of the complement system. So this immunoglobulin G1 was providing an optimal binding site for the C1q. The immunoglobulin G2 hinge region is not providing an optimal binding site over here. Therefore, this is a weak activator of the classical complement pathway. Now, this immunoglobulin G2 has other important function as well. That immunoglobulin G2 is responsible for preventing the adhesion of the bacterial cells to the host cells, and the immunoglobulin G2, they are very important in preventing the adhesion of the viral spike proteins to the host cells. So what that means is you are using the immunoglobulin G2 in the bacterial as well as in the viral infection, and this is protecting your body from the bacterial and the viral infection. In my last video, I've told you that the immunoglobulin G1 that was an activator of the antibody dependent cellular cytotoxicity. So, when you talk about the immunoglobulin G2, this is a very weak activator of the antibody dependent cellular cytotoxicity mechanism. Now, one of the reason is that it have got a short hinge region. This is one of the region. This is one of the reason that the immunoglobulin G2 is a weak activator of the ADCC. Secondly, it have got a very less flexible region because of this short hinge region. The structure of the immunoglobulin G2 that is less flexible, and it has got more heterogeneous glycosylation pattern when you compare that with the other subclasses of the immunoglobulin G. Now, as I've told you that the immunoglobulin G2 that have got a lower fucosylation as compared to the other classes, and you might be wondering that the lower fucosylation that is actually an activator, or this is actually enhancing the strong interaction of the that is a very strong activator of the ADCC. But when you talk about the immunoglobulin G1, you have to look for a lot of factors. Now, this is not the only lower fucosylation that can enhance the strong interaction with the Fc gamma receptor, which are present on the other immune cells, but you have to look at the overall structure of the immunoglobulin G2. So, because of the short hinge region, less flexibility, that is actually adding that the ADCC is weak, although it have got this lower fucosylation which can enhance strong interaction. So the collective components, they are actually making the immunoglobulin G2 a weak activator of the ADCC. When you talk about the immunoglobulin G2, I've told you in my last video that immunoglobulin G1 that can actually transfer through the placenta, and we talk about the Fc neonatal receptors that are present over there, which actually helps the movement of the immunoglobulin G1 from the mother through the placenta into the fetus. But when you talk about the immunoglobulin G2, that is a very weak, you can say it can very weakly transfer through the placenta. And the reasons is that if you look at the structure of the immunoglobulin G2, so the protein at position number 236, which is actually present in the CH2 domain of the immunoglobulin G2, and the histidine at position number 435, which is actually the CH3 domain, which is present in the CH3 domain of the immunoglobulin G2, that are replaced by the glutamine. So as you can see over here, there are, you can say, different amino acids present at this particular position. So in the immunoglobulin G1, you're going to see the 236 as protein, you're going to see the 435 as the histidine, but in the G2 that has been replaced by the glutamine. And this is one of the reasons that the immunoglobulin G2, it cannot act in it can strongly, it cannot actually strongly interact with the Fc neonatal receptor, and hence the transfer through the placenta, that is a very weaker one. Secondly, the substitution, as I've told you, they are going to reduce the affinity for the neonatal Fc receptors at the syncytiotrophoblasts. Therefore, the immunoglobulin G2, that is, you can say, very weakly transferred through the placenta from the mother to the fetus. So we are going to continue our discussion in the next video. Uh, excuse me. And in the next video, I'm going to focus on the third subtype of the immunoglobulin G, and that would be the immunoglobulin G3.